of using forward rates to calculate the spot rates. So here we calculated Z2 based on the forward rates, right? And then similarly, we calculated the Z3 based on these three forward rates, and then we calculated Z4 based on these four forward rates. And you could then replace the you could use these forward rates to calculate these spot rates and use that to calculate the value or the price of a bond. Now, if I just put these rates in front of each other, so the Z2 that we calculated, the Z3 that we calculated, the Z4 that we calculated, and if I put them on a graph like this, clearly you can see that the forward rates are greater than the spot rates. And this is what I need you to pick up, that the forward curve is when the spot rates are actually upward sloping, when the spot curve is upward sloping, the forward curve is higher than the spot curve. And what we had already talked about earlier is that the par is lower than it, right? So whenever the first thing I want you to remember is that the spot curve is always in between the par and the forward. And if it is upward sloping, and if it is downward sloping, it will also be still in the middle. So in that case, the par would be above the spot and the forward would then be below. So that's the other thing I want you to remember, is that the forward is leading, right? So if it is upward sloping, then the forward is higher. If it's downward sloping, the forward is lower, right? And the spot is always between the forward and the par. If, by the way, if it's flat, then all of them will be equal. So spot will be equal to par, which will be equal to forward. And that is essentially what you need to know in this part of the learning module, which is the relationship between these, is that if, for example, it's upward sloping, so your forward will be leading and your spot will be in the middle and your par will be below that. If it is same, then forward will be the same as spot, which will be the same as your par. And if it is downward sloping, then the forward will be leading to the downside with spot in the middle and par just a little above that. Right. And of course, you have this wonderful summary in the curriculum, which tells you when it's flat, it's equal, right? And when it's upward sloping, forward curve is above, whereas par is below. And if it's downward sloping, then forward is below and par is above. Right. So that is the end of this learning module. We talked about using different spot rates to calculate the value of a bond, right? And that is called your spot rates, also called zero rates, also called strip, right? Essentially what you're doing here is stripping these cash flows and calculating the specific respective rate for each year. Or you could do that assuming zero coupon bonds, and if the present value is for a zero coupon bond for 1 year versus what would be the yield if the zero coupon bond were to give you the face value in 2 years, right? So depending on whatever would be the present value, you could calculate the yield, and that yield would then be Z1 and Z2 and so on and so forth. We looked at forward rates and par rates. So par rate is always something that makes your face value equal to your present value if you were discounting it at the spot rates, right? So Z1, Z2 squared, and then Z3, 1 plus Z3 squared. But then what would be that payment is what you need to solve for. And for each year, obviously, separately. And if it's a 3-year bond, then that payment will give you the 3-year par rate, right? So every year you have to calculate separately, and you're able to then calculate the coupon rate based on the payment amount. The coupon rate as a percentage, coupon rate is the payment as a percentage of the face value. And that will be done separately for each year, and that will give you the par rate for each year. And then of course we got into forward rates, where you can use this formula so let's say if you're doing Z1 and Z2 for your 1y, it will be 1 plus Z1 to the power of 1 multiplied by 1 plus 1y also to the power of 1 because it's for 1 year is equal to 1 plus Z2 to the power of 2. And you can essentially calculate forward rates from spot rates from forward rates if you have the relevant data, right? So for example, if I want to calculate, this is a five-year timeline, and if I want to calculate the rate for a loan starting after 3 years for 2 years, right? Then if I have my Z3 and if I have my Z5, I can easily do it. So any combinations of these can be done, right, using this structure. And then, of course, you can use forward rates to calculate spot rates. You can work, all of these are related, and therefore the curves that you get with them are also related, with the upward sloping scenario being spot above the par but below the forward, right? And if it was a downward sloping scenario, so if spot is going down, well, forward would be leading downwards and par would be above it. But spot is always in the middle. And of course, if it's a flat, then they're all equal, right? So forward is equal to spot is equal to par. So that is it, guys, for this learning module. Hope you enjoyed it. Of course, you can watch the video again and you can do a lot of questions from our question bank, the curriculum, end of reading questions, and the CFA ecosystem. So best of luck and hope to see you in the next learning module.